Howdy folks, hope you all had a great weekend and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. And I'm very happy to say that this episode of Mingles with Jingles has got itself a sponsor. Hopefully you're all aware by now that I don't accept sponsorships unless it's from a company or a product that I either use myself or am entirely happy to recommend to you, or both, and that is the case with today's sponsor, Incogni. Now, I'm sure you're all aware that every time you go on the internet, your personal data is being harvested by data brokers and sold on to, well, basically anybody who will pay for it. Usually, things like insurance companies or credit companies, making it harder for you to get credit and raising your insurance premiums without you even knowing anything about it. It's also possible that you may be aware that under most legal jurisdictions you're entitled to go after these data brokers and demand that they remove any information about you that they hold on file. Now that's fine in theory, but it's a lot harder in practice because, well, do you even know who these data brokers are? I mean, I didn't, but they knew who I was. And that's where Incogni comes in, because Incogni does all of the hard work for you. Incogni goes after the data brokers, submitting demands that they remove any data that they hold on file for you, and I'm actually pretty good about taking care of my online data. So when I signed up for Incogni's service, I wasn't particularly surprised to find that 69 data brokers that Incogni went after didn't actually hold any data on me, but a further 26 did, and Incogni not only got them to remove any of my personal data, they also slapped them with a suppression order to ensure that they couldn't accidentally re-add me back to their lists in the future, and they keep checking up on them to ensure that they comply with these legal requirements because, oh, would you look at that, sometimes some of them don't. So head over to incogni.com/jingles and use code JINGLES to get an exclusive offer of 60% off. That's incogni.com/jingles and use code JINGLES, or just click the link below to take your personal data off the market. So anyway, now that's the bills paid, I have some amazingly good news. Well, it's good news for me. It's not going to affect any of, well, it shouldn't affect any of you. I should probably explain. So, as I'm sure you're all aware, my health has been, I've been having a bit of a up and down the last couple of months. So, 3 months ago now? Actually, yeah, 3 months ago, I was diagnosed with diabetes and stomach cancer, which is, not great. Fortunately, the cancer treatment was quick and effective. I was in for surgery just over a month ago now. And they got it all, so cancer-free, and the recovery process has been pretty good. I'm basically completely back to normal, although going for a dump can still be quite dramatic. But yeah, we're straying into the realms of too much information. Anyway, just over a week ago, I got asked to pop into the doctor's surgery for an electrocardiogram, give them a urine sample, and have some blood taken for some tests. And I just assumed that this was all follow-up for the bowel cancer surgery. So anyway, about 4 or 5 days ago, I get a phone call from the pharmacist at the doctor's surgery. And I thought, the pharmacist, the guy who prescribes or makes up the medicine prescriptions. And I thought, what the hell? I thought, does this have something to do with my diabetes medication? Because like literally the day before, I'd gotten a repeat prescription for my diabetes medication, the metformin that I take for it. And I thought, what's going on here? And he was talking about the electrocardiogram and the urine sample and the blood tests that I'd had done the previous week. So I thought, oh no, this must be something to do with bowel cancer. Well, no, it wasn't. He had no idea what I was talking about. He didn't have a clue that I had actually been in for bowel cancer surgery. This was to do with the diabetes. And I'd forgotten that it had been 3 months since my original blood tests and diabetes diagnosis. And when you are diagnosed with diabetes, they check your blood, but they can't do anything for another 3 months because I forget the exact details, but there's a thing that binds to your red blood cells, and it lives for 3 months basically. So they can put you on medication, you can start changing your lifestyle, but you won't actually see a difference until 3 months have expired. And it turns out that it was nothing to do with bowel cancer surgery. That's why they had me in for blood tests and an ECG and the urine sample, and I had no idea, and that's what the pharmacist was calling up about. And I'll cut a long story short, I don't have diabetes anymore. The level, there's a thing, and again, there's this thing in your blood that if it's over a certain level, you have type 2 diabetes. And when I was originally diagnosed, it was at double the level of what it would be to not be a diabetic. It was like 84 parts per million or whatever. And the results of all the tests, it was back down to 40. So I'd halved the level of the bad shit in my blood that was causing me to have type 2 diabetes by basically cutting sugar out of my diet and being careful with what I eat and so on and so on, and also being on this metformin medication. But it paid off. All the hard work and effort means I am officially no longer a diabetic. I mean, I'm right on the borderline of what it is to be considered diabetic, but I'm just under the mark. So, you know, it's close. I'm right on the line, but I'm on the correct side of the line. And considering that 3 months ago I was at double where that line was, basically this is amazingly good news. So I'm cancer-free, and I'm officially no longer diabetic as well. Although, you know, I'm going to keep up the diet and the lifestyle. I'm not going to be suddenly guzzling 3 litres of full-fat Coke every day and chugging chocolate like it's going out of fashion. Because I've gotten used to this healthier lifestyle now. And honestly, it really didn't take that much of an adjustment. It just, the big thing was cutting out all of the sugar. Stop drinking full-fat Coke. Stop eating chocolate. I used to have a chocolate stash in my bedside cabinet, and I go to bed at night and I just sit there eating chocolate bars. You know, it was terrible, terrible, unhealthy lifestyle. And I do kind of miss chocolate, or I thought I did, because like in the first month after changing my diet, I got this sudden craving for chocolate. And when I was at the shops, I thought, I'll just get one chocolate bar. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? And this was a month after changing everything, and I took one bite and I just couldn't eat anymore. There was so much sugar in it. You know, which is good. I admit the first couple of weeks were tough, particularly coffee without sugar in it and not being able to drink Coca-Cola anymore, but I very, very quickly got used to the sugar-free stuff. And now the idea of putting sugar in anything, no. And I've lost weight as well. I've actually lost... Oh, let me see. Maths is hard. I was 102 kilograms when I went in for surgery, and a month later I'm at 88.9, so basically 90. I've lost 12 kilograms. For the benefit of those of you who still use freedom units, that's it's 26.5 pounds. And I still have a little bit of a belly on me, so I could stand to lose a little bit more weight, and I'm pretty sure that I probably will. I'll just keep this diet and this lifestyle up. And because the last thing that I want is to become diabetic again, which can very easily happen if I slack. But I did treat myself. I celebrated the news of not being a diabetic anymore by treating myself to some strawberry ice cream. It was the first time I'd had ice cream in 3 months, and oh, it was good. It was so good. Wasn't a lot. I just had a cornetto, a soft cornetto strawberry ice cream thing. But, you know, generally this is amazing. No more cancer, no more diabetes. I've lost a ton of weight. I keep this up, and I have every expectation that I'm going to be fitter and healthier at the age of 60 than I was last year at 53. So that's my good news for the week. Now on to the bad news. Because there's always something to complain about, isn't there? The science fiction author Cory Doctorow coined a phrase, which is something that I want to talk about this week. The phrase, well, it's not really a phrase, it's a word. Inshitification. The process whereby things that were once good just get steadily and inevitably worse. I first noticed this phenomenon before I even realised there was a word for it. Back in... it was either the late 80s or the early 90s. It was around about the time when satellite television was becoming a thing here in the UK. Sky TV, which was the big satellite TV company, and still is, they were rolling out their service here in the UK, and everybody was getting it. Well, not us, we were too poor. But You would see suddenly all of these satellite dishes started sprouting on the walls of everybody's homes. Apparently, it was a great service. I mean, here in the UK, for a long time, we only ever had 3 television channels: BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. And then in the 80s, we got a 4th channel. Ooh, it's called Channel 4. Not very imaginative, I know. And Sky had like loads of different channels. It was amazing. And when you got the Sky subscription, you got, as well as a whole bunch of lesser channels, you got Sky 1, Sky 2, and these were the big sort of soap opera style TV channels with all the shows on. You got Sky Movies, so all the movies were not free. You paid for it with a multi-subscription. You got Sky Sports. And it was amazing. It was great. At first. It didn't take long, only like a year, maybe 2, once Sky had gotten everybody locked into their contracts and used to enjoying the service before they started parceling it up. The original Sky subscription that you paid for, which got you access to all of the channels for one price, suddenly only got you access to Sky One and the lesser TV channels as well. If you wanted Sky Movies, that was an additional subscription. If you wanted Sky Sports, that was also an additional subscription. And then it got even worse, because originally when they split the service up, at least if you paid for Sky Sports as an additional subscription, you got all of the sport. So the service was getting more shitty, but at least, you could watch all the Sunday football whenever it was on, and so on and so on. But it didn't take long before even that got worse, and they introduced pay to view. So you're already paying for 3 different subscriptions, where you were previously just paying for one and got to watch everything, and now you're paying for your base Sky TV subscription, you're paying for the Sky Movie subscription, you're paying for the Sky Sports subscription, but at least you get to watch the Mike Tyson versus Larry Holmes fight this weekend, except no, you don't. You now have to pay extra just to watch that one single boxing match. And they kept doing this with premium sports events. They all suddenly became pay-to-view on top of your sports subscription. Well, this was all 30 years ago, so what's the point, Jingles? Well, the process continues, doesn't it? Hands up anybody who's got an Amazon Prime subscription. Yeah, I do. Amazon Prime was amazing. For one annual subscription, you got next day delivery on everything that you ordered from Amazon. You got access to all of Prime Video, which was really good. And then Amazon bought out Twitch, and suddenly you got a Twitch Prime subscription on top of it, with free games every month and a free Twitch subscription to the streamer of your choice, all included in your annual Amazon Prime membership. That didn't last long either, did it? I mean, you've still got Twitch Prime, but when was the last time you ordered anything from Amazon and it actually arrived the next day? I mean, you can still get next day delivery on Amazon Prime, but it's not unusual for delivery to take 2, 3, sometimes 4 days, sometimes even longer. And when was the last time you took a look at Amazon Prime Video? They've done exactly the same thing with that Sky did 30 years ago with its TV subscription service. Now they've got, well, they've had it for a couple of years now. I mean, the writing's been on the wall for quite some time. Now you've got Prime Video channels. Let's say, for example, you like watching horror movies, and you used to be able to watch all of the horror movies on Prime Video with your Amazon Prime subscription. And there are still some horror movies available to watch, included with your basic Amazon Prime subscription. But now they've got Prime Horror Video channels, which require an additional subscription. And now they've started introducing advertising on the stuff that's free with Amazon Prime. Except it isn't free, because you're paying an annual subscription to watch movies that now have advertising breaks. It's the gradual enshittification of the service. They get you used to it, and then they start parceling it up and charging you more for everything that you used to get for the original price. And the enshittification process continues. Who's got an Instagram account? I've got an Instagram account. Some of you might even follow me on Instagram. The only thing I actually use it for, though, is posting cat videos, but that's probably why most of you who do follow me on Instagram. But I also use it, well, when I go to bed at night, I take my phone and I scroll through Instagram Reels until I fall asleep. Guess what Instagram just announced? Instagram are trialling unskippable adverts. 2 different types. One with a countdown timer, where you just basically have to sit there and wait for the ad to finish rolling before you can get back to whatever it was you were interested in looking at in the first place. And another one that will interrupt whatever you're watching with something that is technically skippable. The ad will pop up and you can either watch the whole advert or you can swipe up to go to the brand's product page and then swipe back down again to get back to wherever it is that you were. So this is something that they are currently trialling. And Instagram are at pains to point out that just because they're trialling these things doesn't mean they're going to implement them. It does mean they're going to implement them. The fact that they're trialling them just means they're testing to see which people are more likely to put up with, and that will be the one that gets implemented. So Instagram is about to get a whole lot shittier as well. Sometimes, though, this enshittification process, while it's almost always deliberate, like as in the case of Instagram and Amazon, but sometimes it's not really the fault of the company providing the service. Sometimes they've just become victims of their own success. Netflix, I think, here is a perfect example. Because Netflix, to a very large degree, have kind of been the victims of their own success. The service isn't what it used to be. Back when I first signed up for Netflix, it was probably 10 years ago, it was incredible. Actually, let's go back to the beginning. Let's talk about how Netflix innovated and how they got themselves into the position, which is a pretty unfortunate position, of where they are right now. So, Netflix started, when was it? Back in 1997 as a DVD rental service, but they were different from the dominant market leader, Blockbuster, in that they didn't have physical locations. There were no Netflix stores that you could walk into, unlike Blockbuster, which had thousands of video rental stores that you could walk into. It's a funny old thing how entire industries have such short lifespans, like the video rental industry, which was dominated by Blockbuster. That entire industry rose and disappeared over the course of about 20 years, made possible by innovations in technology, home video, and then killed by innovations in technology, video streaming. And it was Netflix who ended up killing Blockbuster. Netflix's original business model started with the rise of DVDs, as opposed to VHS tapes, which was what Blockbuster built its business on, where you would walk into a Blockbuster store and browse a whole selection of VHS tapes, something to rent for the weekend. And when DVDs came out, Blockbuster started offering DVD rentals as well. But it was the DVDs that made the difference to Netflix, because VHS tapes were just too bulky, they cost too much to post, and they were too delicate, and they would get damaged in the post. But with a DVD in a flat jewel case, suddenly it became a viable business. And that's what Netflix did. They didn't have these brick and mortar stores that you could walk into like Blockbuster. Instead, you could rent from a reasonable selection of their DVDs. They only had 30 employees and less than 1,000 titles available in 97 when they started. And they would mail you your selection. So they're already different from Blockbuster in that respect. But what made them even more different was, for example, if you rented a tape from Blockbuster and you didn't bring it back by the due date, they would hit you with a massive late return fee. And originally, Netflix charged per rental. So I don't know how much it was, but let's say $5 per DVD that you ordered. Well, they dropped that pretty quickly and instead switched to a flat subscription. And with your monthly Netflix subscription, you could rent as many DVDs as you wanted. And you could send them back whenever you wanted. There were no late return fees because there was no due date by which you had to send them back. You could send them back whenever you were good and ready. The trick was they made the whole process convenient, because going to Blockbuster wasn't convenient, and taking everything back to Blockbuster after you'd watched it was also inconvenient. With Netflix, they just made the whole process really easy and convenient for the user. You didn't have to get off your arse and go to a store to pick a tape. You just browsed the website, you thought, yeah, I want to watch that, and that. You selected them, they got mailed to you, they were delivered to your house, you watched them whenever you wanted, you sent them back whenever you wanted. And the whole system proved to be a success. Certainly successful enough for them to expand, hire more employees, and introduce more titles. They still weren't a competitor to Blockbuster, because Blockbuster, it's hard to imagine these days, considering Blockbuster have been bankrupt for, I don't know, probably 20 years now. But it's hard to imagine just how dominant, if you weren't there at the time, Blockbuster was. Netflix was doing all right, but it wasn't a serious competitor to Blockbuster. It was doing well enough, though, that the guys in charge of Netflix thought maybe Blockbuster would like to buy us out. And so they approached Blockbuster with an offer, which Blockbuster rejected because Blockbuster didn't believe that Netflix was going anywhere. They thought, you're a flash in the pan. You're just flavour of the month. You're never going to catch on. Yeah. In quite the same way that Yahoo twice rejected an offer to buy out Google. I don't know if anybody actually remembers Yahoo. There's a fair chance that most, maybe not most, but there's some of you out there who probably never heard of it. Yahoo was what Google was before there was a Google. Whereas Google's a search engine, Yahoo wasn't actually a search engine. It was just a sort of web portal with lists of really popular websites. And it was massive, absolutely huge. It was the dominant market leader. And then a couple of guys got together and decided to put together this little search engine that they'd been working on. And they called it Google. Again, like Netflix to Blockbuster, Google wasn't even close to being in a position to challenge the market dominance of Yahoo. But they were having some success, and they thought maybe Yahoo would like to buy us out and incorporate our new search engine into their front page. So they approached Yahoo and said, look, we're a couple of college students, because they were actually, Google was developed by a couple of guys in college. And between them, they came up with a search algorithm that was faster and more accurate than anything Yahoo had. But they didn't see developing this as a career. They were more interested in continuing and finishing their education. So they turned around to Yahoo and said, do you want to integrate this into your front page? Because it's a really, really good search engine. It's better than what you have. And if you give us $1 million, it's yours. And we can get back to college and finish our degrees. And Yahoo said, yeah, no, you're okay. We're not interested. They could have bought Google out for $1 million, and they said no. So these two college students, this was in 1998, by the way, these two college students continued to develop Google after Yahoo had said no to buying them out for $1 million. 4 years later, right, just 4 years later, in 2002, Yahoo had a second opportunity to buy out Google, but this time it wasn't Google going to Yahoo, it was Yahoo going to Google, cap in hand, saying, yeah, we'd quite like to buy you out now, actually. And this time, they weren't going to get Google for $1 million. This time, Google wanted $5 billion. So the first time around, Yahoo could have had Google for $1 million. The second time around, just 4 years later, Yahoo could have had Google for $5 billion, which is less than Yahoo ended up being worth in its entirety when it was sold to Verizon in 2016, and Google is currently worth $2.164 trillion. Similar situation to what happened between Netflix and Blockbuster back in 2002, I think it was. I mean, don't get me wrong, Google's worth a lot more than Netflix, but Netflix is doing all right. It's currently valued, I think, $276 billion, and Blockbuster isn't valued at anything because it went bankrupt 20 years ago after refusing to buy Netflix out. But it was the switch to video streaming that really put the final nail into Blockbuster's coffin, and that, of course, was where, again, Netflix innovated because they were the market leaders in video streaming services. And again, they were able to establish market dominance because nobody else thought they had a chance of succeeding. I mean, video streaming, seriously? That's never going to work. And so Netflix went around all the big movie studios and they said, we would like to pay you for an exclusive contract to stream all of your old movies. And the movie studio said, you want to what? you want to give us money? Said, yeah, no problem. Where do we sign? Because they thought that was never going to catch on. You know, the technology just wasn't there to support it. But it was, and it was getting better every year. And this is where Netflix first started running into its problems, because it was a huge, massive success. I mean, currently valued at $276 billion. But within a couple of years, Netflix became a victim of their own success because they'd proven that you could stream movies and TV shows over the internet and make a ton of money doing it. Much to the consternation and upset of all of the movie and television studios who'd signed exclusive deals with Netflix to do exactly that. But do you remember, like 10 years ago, when you logged into Netflix, most of what was on offer were movies. The entire back catalogues of every major movie studio. If there was a movie that had been released in the last 40 years, chances were very good that you could watch it for free. Well, not for free, you paid a monthly subscription, but you could watch it on Netflix. Where are all those movies now? They're all on Paramount's streaming service, or Disney's streaming service, or HBO Max. All of these services that didn't exist when Netflix started streaming. And the reason is because Netflix showed how insanely profitable it was, and all of these big studios, all of the TV networks, all of the movie studios, were looking at the contracts that they'd signed with Netflix and just waiting until that contract ran out. And then when Netflix came back and said, we'd like to renew the contracts, they all said, nope, we're launching our own streaming service. Now, again, to their credit, Netflix weren't stupid. They saw this coming. Either the movie studios were going to start streaming the stuff themselves, or they were going to start charging stupid amounts of money to allow Netflix to continue streaming their stuff for them. So they saw this coming, but they'd already anticipated this and taken steps to, once again, switch their business model. So they started off as a DVD rental service, taken on Blockbuster, where instead of having stores that you could walk into and browse, you would have a website and they would post stuff out to you from a warehouse. From that, they stopped doing that about 2 years after they started streaming the entire back catalogues of all the major movie and TV networks over the internet. And when that started failing to pan out because all of the movie and TV networks and studios realised, holy shit, this actually works, right, we're going to do our own stuff, they took all of the money that they made from that and started investing it in commissioning their own TV shows and movies, which is why if you go onto Netflix now, it's completely different to the situation when I first signed up for Netflix about 10 years ago, where I signed up so I could watch basically any movie that I wanted anytime I wanted, which is what Netflix was 10 years ago, but now it's all Netflix originals. If you log into Netflix now and have a look at all of the thumbnails of everything that's available to watch on Netflix, and I guarantee you at least 50% will have that big red N on it, indicating it's a Netflix original. Most of the stuff that you can watch on Netflix now was commissioned, developed, and paid for by Netflix. They have now basically become their own movie and TV studio. You can still watch other people's stuff on there, but it's no longer the only thing that you can watch on there. So has Netflix succumbed to the enshittification process as well? Well, in regards to the content, I mean, it depends what you want to watch. If you love watching classic movies, well, yeah, Netflix has definitely gotten shittier. But that's not really Netflix's fault. I mean, in that regard, they are definitely the victims of their own success. When it comes to the Netflix originals, the movies and the TV shows, though, I mean, a lot of them are pretty good. In that respect, whether you think the service is better or worse than it used to be is a matter of personal taste. It's subjective. If you like the Netflix originals that are currently available, then yeah, it's no better or worse than it used to be. When it comes to pricing, however, yeah. Because now if you want to watch all of these Netflix originals and everything else available on Netflix without adverts, it costs you twice what it used to cost for an 100% ad-free Netflix subscription just a couple of years ago. Well, hang on a minute. Does that mean that if Netflix is now supported by adverts, does that mean you can watch Netflix for free as long as you're prepared to put up with ad breaks? No. You'd think that would be the case, but, well, no, it isn't. A Netflix subscription used to cost you $7 a month, and for that $7 a month, you could watch everything on Netflix with no adverts. Now, the least that you can pay for a Netflix subscription, well, it's still $7 a month, but that means you have to watch advertising as well. Not even Netflix is immune to the inevitable enshittification of everything good. And on that thoroughly depressing bombshell, actually, no, that's not it for this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. I just remembered something that I wanted to talk about. I cooked a chili the other day. Nothing unusual in that. I usually cook a chili at least once a week, either beef or pork. I just seared off all of the meat. I had half a kilogram of diced pork. I had a kilogram of minced pork. And I had another kilogram of spicy Calabrian sausage meat. Really, really good stuff. So it's all been seared off in the pan, and I started adding my spices. I started with cumin, because if you're cooking a chili, you have to add cumin. So I'm pouring the cumin in, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, this cumin's a lot dustier than I remember cumin being. Yeah, it wasn't cumin. I just added half a jar of cinnamon to a very, very expensive dish. So I'd either just come up with an amazing new chili recipe, or I just ruined an awful lot of fairly expensive meat. So I went into emergency mode and started adding chipotle chili powder. And it turns out, if you add enough chipotle chili powder to something, you can mask the flavor of just about anything. You could still taste the cinnamon. You know, it was still there, but it wasn't actually that bad. Which is just as well, because when I cook chili, I do enough for 2 people for 3 days. So that was a lot of food that could potentially have gone to waste. But it wasn't actually that bad. I mean, I wouldn't recommend putting that amount, or in fact any amount of cinnamon into a chili, but, well, at least it didn't go to waste. Anyway, on that note, that is it for this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. If you've stuck around to the end, thank you. Hope you enjoyed it. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.